Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another BBBN podcast. This was an amazing week for BattleBots. This was a decently solid week. One thing that I would describe this week of fights, some of the fights felt very middle school dance sort of thing. And I'll dive into why I say that later. But let's get into this episode. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe on the YouTube channel, and just keep the positive vibes coming. Keep them coming. This one I'll try to be a little more cut and dry about what I think about the fights, but let's get into it. Let's start off with Witch Doctor and Gruff. Witch Doctor coming into this fight I don't want to say they didn't necessarily win. I personally had them, even after their 2 wins, I had them as a lock to make the tournament, mainly because of the fact that you look at Ribot, that win was dominating, and then the Fusion fight, it was back and forth and back, and it could have went either way, but Witch Doctor definitely deserved to win it. Those 2 wins alone definitely made Witch Doctor worthy of getting into the top 32, and these next couple of matchups will definitely end up heavily controlling the seeding of what happens. But this fight was fantastic. I just checked, and it's on the YouTube channel for BattleBots if you don't want to look it up. If you don't have Discovery Plus or watch them live on Thursdays, I highly recommend you watch it. It was just like a dominating fight from Witch Doctor. We did see Witch Doctor bring forks, which I don't think they've ever brought forks before. Normally when you think of Witch Doctor, it's mainly just all offense, just looking forward, having the spinner be the first thing that makes contact with another robot, and they went with forks. And I can see why they did that against Gruff, because Gruff is a control bot. Gruff wants to get control and keep control and push you around. Gruff was able to get like some lifts in, but their bread and butter was the flamethrower, and their bread and butter are those forks. And Witch Doctor was pretty easily able to get under with their little tiny forks and dish out some hits. Huge shots from all around. For me, this felt very akin to, I believe it was season 4 Witch Doctor when they fought Gigabyte, where they just kept on sending robots up, and where it kept on sending Gigabyte up in the air. That's what it felt like the entire time. Gruff was getting frequent flyer miles the entire time. And, when you look at this matchup, it's not necessarily one that I don't think a lot of people Gruff would win, but one that people may have thought Gruff could take it to a judge's decision, because it's just a brick wall and it's just a tank. And then we just saw Witch Doctor destroy a tank like Gruff. For now, I am going to keep it at 2. It started at 2 and it stayed at 2. But looking at this next matchup, we have Minotaur versus Witch Doctor. Now, I don't know how the selection committee felt about both Witch Doctor and Minotaur going into the tournament. But I also believe they have Witch Doctor, Minotaur as the 1-2 seeds coming into their fight. Ultimately, this fight decides the number 1 seed in the bracket. Ultimately, that's what happens. Can't tell me otherwise. That is what's going to happen. And when it comes to robots being more destructive, we saw both robots be really reliable, and we saw both robots be really destructive. You look at these matchups. Tantrum and Ribot were very similar. They're like one-sided curb stomps of a really solid robot. Free Shipping and Gruff are very similar fights in as they're, I don't want to necessarily say lower class robots, but they aren't like stalwarts that of robot combat that consistently are like competing heavily to win the giant nut. But like Minotaur destroyed free shipping, Witch Doctor destroyed Gruff. And then you have Fusion and Cobalt, which was a very back and forth match where both of them ended up winning. Their schedules are very parallel right now. And whoever wins that gets the first seed and locks that first seed. There's a chance that Riptide wins this, but there's a chance that, yeah, there's a chance that Riptide gets it. There's a chance that Sawblaze gets it if they beat Hydra. But I think that's for first seed, and both teams have locked. I feel like both teams have locked a top 5 spot, honestly. Maybe not. I might be a little too bold to say. Top 10, more than likely. But as for Gruff, it's going to have... It's gonna be interesting to see what happens. I think a 2-2 Gruff can make it into the tournament. I think a 2-2 Gruff can make it into the bracket. Especially when you look at who it's fought. It's fought Ripperoni, who is... It beat Ripperoni, who has become, like, an incredible rookie. Granted, Ripperoni wasn't at full strength, but it lost to Quantum and to Witch Doctor. And if you look at my rankings, some people could say that this is both robots are top 5. For now, both robots are top 7. So, if Gruff beats Malice, which it could definitely do, there's a strong chance that Gruff gets into the round of 32 as a lower seed. For now, it's going to go below free shipping and above Whiplash. For now. That could totally change. But now we move on to our next fight, being Valkyrie and Malice. And this was one that I was really surprised of the result. Now, there's a lot to unpack in this fight. And this was one of the fights when I was alluding to the feeling of a middle school dance. When I was watching it, that was the first thing I commented on. Both robots looked better. Both Valkyrie and Malice looked better. Almost a return to form for both robots. Because Valkyrie, its past 2 fights, Malice and Banshee, it hasn't looked like Valkyrie. It hasn't looked like a powerful undercutter spinner that we are used to. And that can be granted to the new driver. New team is in the helm of the robot. So rookie issues for the driver. But Malice has looked very unreliable. And that's been the detriment to it. It lost to Lockjaw, but like Lockjaw controlled a lot of that fight. It lost to Emulsifier because Emulsifier just stopped working. So even though coming into this fight, both teams were 1-1, both of these teams felt like 0-2 robots. Because how Valkyrie won the Mammoth fight is that Mammoth died by itself, and how Malice won the Emulsifier fight was Emulsifier died by itself. Not a good look to the selection committee. But this fight was incredible. This fight was, I don't want to say incredible. The first minute and a half was good. You know, good solid exchanges were happening from 2 horizontal spinners, and I thought Valkyrie was going to win just because of reach alone, and potentially being able to hit some parts that Malice didn't intend, like the weapon. The weapon, I thought they could dislodge it potentially, and the weapon, which I didn't see that happening at all. But Malice got a really solid shot into Valkyrie, taking the weapon off of Valkyrie, just right off. You would think that the type of robot to do that would be a vertical spinner. But on the other hand, Malice was able to do it. And the rest of this fight turned into both of the robots crab walking, both robots disabled the other robots one side of the wheel, so they were just crab walking and slowly like edging towards each other like you're awkward in a middle school dance and you're like trying to like dance with the girl you like or the guy you like and you just can't, like you don't know how to. That's what it looked like and that's what it felt like. And then judge's decision came around and I thought Malice won. I think a lot of people thought Malice won. The judge's decision becomes 2-1 for Valkyrie, and I lost my mind. I lost like everything of like every part of my body just like vanished. I was just like, how in the world did Malice lose this fight? But this brings us to the first televised version of the appeals. Someone appealed to BattleBots saying like, hey, yo, you got the decision wrong. And you cite the reasonings why, and it goes to the judges who rewatch the fight and then give a different decision. It's very similar to the challenge system in the NFL. And the challenge system works pretty solid, despite what some may say about the challenge system in the NFL. You think a play is suspect, you throw a red flag, you say, hey, I think that catch wasn't a catch, or something, blah, 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 blah. The refs review it, they get a bunch of different angles, just like how the judges get a bunch of different angles, and they make a decision from there. If you win the challenge, you keep one of your timeouts. If you lose the challenge, you have to lose one of your timeouts. Which, how the appeals work and like how it ends up is that you have, when you appeal, you're risking your ability to appeal in the future. So if you lose this appeal, you can't appeal in the future. But if you win, you can continue to do it. And Malice appealed, and then Malice rightfully won the fight. This was a very strong fight, and a fight that they should 100% appeal. They don't make the tournament. I don't think they make the tournament at a 2-2 record when your win is emulsifier. I don't think they make the tournament at all. There's a slight chance that they get in there, but a win is very good for them. And next they face off against Gruff, who we just talked about. That will be a very interesting matchup. You know, Gruff was built to beat robots like Malice. So we will see what happens with that. As for now, I'm going to put it at 26 for now. And I'm not going to lock it. It has a good shot at making it in, but I'm not 100% confident that it will. Moving on to Valkyrie. It has Glitch next, which is a good sign, because Glitch is not looking the best. But I don't know off of this 2-2 record that it can make it either. We are really looking at a bunch of fringe... I was going to say players. We are really looking at a bunch of fringe competitors here. I'm going to move Valkyrie below Switchback, but above Shatter, just based on the fact that they do, in fact, have a win. Alright. Moving on to our next fight, Mad Catter versus Big Dill. Now, this was a very fun matchup. A matchup that I don't think a lot of people would look at on the fight card and say, oh, that's going to be fun. But Big Dill is probably one of the most impressive 0-3 robots we have seen. It's definitely, even though the record doesn't show it, it was competitive against Hijinks. It then brought the vertical spinner setup against Scorpios, where it wins if it doesn't stop working. It wins if it continues on the fight, because Scorpios wasn't able to do much against Big Dill. And then it comes into Mad Catter. I don't think a lot of people thought they would be able to beat Mad Catter. But they were really competitive for that first portion of the fight, that first half. They were going to town on Mad Catter. And Mad Catter was able to turn the tables during the closer to the end of the fight. And I think what really sealed this went to a judge's decision, right? I'm not crazy. This went to a judge's decision, or it might have been like knocked out right before. Either or. Mad Catter was able to show that it was the more reliable robot. Its weapon was spinning at the end of the fight, and for Big Dill, the weapon wasn't. And that is huge when it comes to sort of those damage calculations and how the judges score that. Definitely the rightful winner deserved to win the fight. Mad Catter fought like hell. So did Big Dill. And a bunch of great exchanges back and forth. I do think even though with this sad record, like Big Dill should get invited back. That vertical spinner is doing a good work, doing a good job at doing what it does best. And that is, it's not really the supplement to the lifter anymore, because the lifter is really helping out the spinner. It's sort of in a similar vein to Terratops, but Big Dill is doing a solid job. Now we go to power rankings. I think I'm going to move Mad Catter up from above Lockjaw. They do play each other next, which is good. And I think I am going to give the lock status to Mad Catter. You're 2-1 right now. If you lose, your two losses are to what would end up being a 3-1 Lockjaw, who has looked a lot better than what it has in previous years, and to Riptide, who is a top seed currently. If you go 3-1, then you clinch. Then you do a good job, and you have solid wins over Whiplash, who hasn't looked the best this year, but has been historically solid, and then Big Dill, who was a good back and forth match. As for Big Dill, I do think Big Dill will not be able to reach the tournament, unfortunately. I'm going to place it under Shatter and Emulsifier because it's in the similar realm of impressive robots that have been having really terrible luck with the reliability. So that's where I will put them. Next up, we had two 0-2 robots that were trying to fight for some sort of semblance when it comes to being in the championship. And Ribot didn't pull through. This was the only stain for me having a perfect episode ranking. I haven't had one in a bit, but this was the only stain. I got all the other fights right. Except for this one. I sort of thought that a Ribot would be going with their horizontal spinner, and that's why I picked them, because Jackpot's last fight was to Rotator, where it got hammered by Rotator, and Ribot's spinner is a very similar caliber to Rotator's. But Jackpot shown that it's been able to adapt, and what really ended up happening is that, Jackpot was able to get to the wheels. Jackpot was able to get to both wheels on a side. And I think this is a fight where Ribot gets... If Ribot loses one wheel, it's fine, and I think it wins. You lose all of your movement on your one side. It's done. You can't perform. And a part of me wonders if Jackpot wins if they just stay back and don't pursue like Ribot when it's in that sort of helpless state. I think they still end up winning. But a part of me that's just like, Jackpot wasn't being aggressive. They weren't being in control. They were just kind of sitting there. Sort of the logic of why Hydra lost to Tantrum the first time. But both robots were looking on onto the up and up. Ribot was able to get a bunch of damage onto Jackpot. Jackpot was able to get the win. Overall, solid fight. Not much to talk about. I think we'll put Ribot above Big Dill, and I do think Ribot is out of the tournament. There's a outside chance that they get in. There's definitely something to say about how impressive their schedule is with losses to Claw Viper and Witch Doctor, who are currently top 6 robots, and then Jackpot. Jackpot would be a easier sell if Jackpot wasn't 1 and 2 currently, but beggars can't be choosers. I'm currently Jackpot is sitting at the 30 spot. We'll see what happens with this. And time to summarize this next fight as quick as it actually happened. Sawblaze versus Scorpios. The hammer saw fight that will never happen because Scorpios brought the overkill blade. I don't knock Zach for trying something different. I don't. He tried something different, it failed. I can see why he did it. When you look at hammer saws, their reach is limited to their bot length. And normally their plows are longer than the actual reach that they have. So it really would have been a battle for ground game. Right? So when you bring a giant hammer, you now beat them in the reach game. Now that giant overkill hammer really messed up the weight of the robot, it kept on tipping and all that jazz. So that was an issue for them, and Scorpios got knocked over immediately and couldn't self-right, and because it got stuck in the screws. And that's all that Sawblaze needed to do. Hypershock, jeez. That's all that Sawblaze needed to do. I am not going to knock Sawblaze any points for having an easy fight. But if they want to move up, they really need to impress with Hydra. I feel like yes, there's still a lock, and they're probably going to get a top seed, but a dominating win over Scorpios because Scorpios did something really weird. And Scorpios is in a very interesting spot. I'm not going to give it the lock even though it is 2-1. Because they won against Jackpot because Jackpot kind of died. It got flipped and it died. And then it beat Big Dill because Big Dill died. But Scorpios was losing that fight beforehand. So I can't really say much for how good Scorpios is. And then it loses to Sawblaze because of an unconventional weapon that it brought. For now, I'm not going to knock it for being putting it below a 2-1, but I'm going to put it at 20. I'm going to put Lucky above Scorpios currently. Moving on to Rookie of the Year versus Hijinks. This fight was Ripperonis through and through. It really showed how good Ripperonis driving ended up being, because I think Ripperoni like said it best when they were like, we can't take horizontal like hits well. If they hit our weapon, like that's gonna spell doom. We really have to drive well in this fight, and they did. And once again, Ripperoni is showing off the power that it has. This is the marquee robot. This is a robot to fear in the tournament. This is a dark horse, and there's not much to say. It was such a pounding. It would just pound and pound and pound and pound until Hijinks died. And I do feel like if they drive any worse, they lose this fight. Because if I think if Hijinks gets two like good shots to the side of Ripperoni that's like tilted up, and they hit the weapon, I think the fight goes Hijinks' way. But that obviously didn't happen. Ripperoni is doing an incredible job currently. And I think, even though it could lose this next fight to Copperhead, it is 100% a lock at this point. It beat Endgame. They're not going to let the Endgame killer in the narrative not make it into the top 32. But I think legitimately they would make it into the top 32, so it's not that big of an issue. But as of where to put it, I do think that it is a very impressive 2-in-1 robot. I am only going to put it below Beta. I'm not swapping it out for Mad Catter. I am going to put it below Beta, because Beta is undefeated. And, that gruff fight was them figuring out the kinks. But, we are looking very solid currently. As for Hijinks, I think Hijinks at 35 makes a lot of sense. I don't think Hijinks moved at all. I feel like this bottom section isn't moving a ton. But we move on to our main event. And in similar fashion to Ribot and... why am I blanking? Jackpot. Hypershock and Endgame. Now, this fight was... I don't want to say a little lackluster, but this was a classic Endgame fight of Endgame controlling the entire matchup. Hypershock was able to do some things, but it wasn't able to do too much. Hypershock got on its side, lost some wheels, and that was it. I really wish I have more to analysis about this, but it's very rinse and repeat for Endgame. And this was a very solid bounce back game for Endgame. Bounce back match, however you want to say it. This one gives them this gives them the lock. This gives them the lock to make it in. As for where they go in the ranking, I am going to... oh my gosh. Cobalt's going to get knocked out of the top 10. Hydra's going to go down to 10. Endgame at 9. And then Hypershock. I think Hypershock is better than all these 1 and 2 robots currently. And I think I'm going to put it over Scorpios for now, currently. It is not a lock. It'll need to be Claw Viper. But think that's where we stand. My current top 32: Free Shipping, Mammoth, Jackpot, Overhaul, Banshee, Bloodsport, Malice, Death Roll, Monsoon, Fusion, Tantrum, Blip, Scorpios, Hypershock, Lucky, Black Dragon, Rotator, Lockjaw, Madcatter, Ripperoni, Beta, Cobalt, Hydra, Endgame, Copperhead, Quantum, Claw Vapor, and your top 5 are Huge, Sloblaze, Riptide, Witch Doctor, and Minotaur. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content, and I will see you next episode.